Hello everybody from Fordwich, Ontario, Canada. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. I am your host and creator of this whole shindig, and I'm really happy to be back with you for another weekly episode of TST Total Sports Talk. We have an excellent program lined up for you today. We're going to cover a little bit of everything. We got Hawk Talk. My special guest, Don Matheson, Winterhawks general manager, will join me. I'm really happy about that, really excited about that. We're also going to talk about the Owen Sound Attack. Fred Wallace will join us. We'll have a little bit of a discussion there. That'll be really interesting as well. I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to touch on the Toronto Maple Leafs a little bit with a Leafs segment. My guest for that is Manny Paiva from CTV News Windsor. He is the news director over there, and he had the privilege of covering Jeremy Bracco, the subject of our Maple Leafs segment. We're also going to talk about the Toronto Raptors. We're going to talk about the NFL in week number 2 and what was left of week number 1 from last week's show. We're also going to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays and the Major League Baseball report, as well as we're going to do our sports movie pick of the week. Tons of great stuff lined up for you. We're going to get right here started. This is Hawk Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents Hawk Talk, brought to you by Gord's Imprints and Design. New location opening at 685 Goderich Street in downtown Port Elgin in the fall of 2017. Visit www.gordsimprints.com for more. Hello again, everybody. Andrew Rogers here. Welcome back. This is Hawk Talk on TST Total Sports Talk, covering everything Saugeen Shores WInterhawks. So I don't know about you guys, but I am so excited for the Winterhawks to be back. I don't know, it seems like summer's so long between when the Winterhawks step off the ice to when they step back on the ice. And I'm very excited to be for the Winterhawks to start playing again, which will happen soon enough. We're only 19 short days away come Saturday, October 7th in Kincardine for Hockey Day in Kincardine against the Ripley Wolves. Joining me now, though, to get everybody teed up, to give a little insight as to how training camp's going and to give us an idea of how the Winterhawks are going to fare this year is my guest at this time, Winterhawks General Manager Don Matheson. Don, pleasure to be here, and welcome to TST.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure for me to be on here with you this evening.
Hey, not a problem. So I'm really excited for Winterhawks hockey. I'm one of the many people who've grown up in the area, who've been witnessing the Winterhawks since their inception in 2007, 2008, and through the 4 championships. How is training camp going, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, training camp is going very well. We've got most of our veterans back from last year. We've got a couple that have moved on. Theo Peckham and Alex Penner have signed in the AAA league, so
okay.
They're playing on a little higher hockey, and that's only makes sense because those 2 guys have played a lot of hockey.
Sure.
Playing with a little higher league. Everybody else is back at this point. Jake Brown is down country working, so he may be back around Christmas. But we've got a good crop of young guys coming out. You know, a lot of local talents that have played in Walker and Hanover, a little bit of Junior B stuff. So we've got a good mix of our veterans and some new guys coming up. Terrific.
Right on. That's good news to hear, obviously. Now, tell me a little bit about, so Blake Underwood, he was on the team last year. He's a phenomenal hockey player. I've had the pleasure of watching him play. I've grown up. He's around my age, I believe, and he's nothing but a terrific, fantastic athlete. And he's been selected. He's over in Dominican Republic right now playing baseball for Team Canada for the Pan American Championships. What is the status on him? Is he going to rejoin the team at some point?
Oh, yeah. Blake was going to go to the first night of training camp, but we said, Blake, this is so important for you to be at the Pan Ams. We don't want you to risk any injury. So he's over there representing Canada and doing a great job, and he'll be back when he gets home on the 25th.
Right on. That's exciting because, like I say, I mean, it would be almost impossible to replace a Blake Underwood in the Winterhawks lineup. Am I right?
Oh, he's a fantastic player. He sees the ice so well, and he makes the guys that play with him that much better.
Yeah, he's a stand-up guy as well. I mean, it's just phenomenal when watching him play. He's just spectacular. Now, speaking of that, having grown up in the area, I mean, I've been to Winterhawks games. I see the atmosphere. What is it from a general manager standpoint that makes you excited to be a part of all of it?
Well, just the guys that are playing. Like, we've got, guys that play Junior C, Junior B. We've got guys that played university and Junior A, Major Junior A, and a couple guys that have played semi-pro and professional.
Yeah.
When you get a group of guys like that come together and play such hockey at a high level, who would not want to be involved with that? And, if I wasn't the manager, I'd be there with my season ticket watching it every Friday night anyways.
Absolutely, no question. And it's just, and the product is so good. I mean, and it shows in the record, and it shows in the success the Winterhawks have had since they've come back in 07, 08 with the 4 championships. They went 18-1-1 last year. I mean, what do they need to do to take the success of last season and bring it into this season?
Well, you got to look at how we did last year. So we finished first in the league, which was very good.
Yeah.
But we lost out in the semifinals to the eventual champion, Clinton Radars.
Yeah.
Clinton is a fantastic team. So, we were upset we lost them, and they're all close games. But we know that we've got to go to that next level when you're playing a team like Clinton.
Right.
So our focus this year is, Clinton's the bar. They're the reigning champs. They set the bar, and we've got to meet that bar and go a little bit above.
100%, no question. What is the effect having Coach Jim Grieve back for this year? How much is that an integral part moving forward?
Well, I was fortunate enough to bring back our entire coaching staff. So Jim Grieve, Barry Hall, Mark Kazarian are all back. And when you look at the hockey experience those 3 guys have had, there's no better group of coaches in the league. And that's nothing against any of the other coaches, but these guys are very good. Jimmy is a fantastic tactician. He can look at a team, and the 3 of those guys, they look at him and warm up, and when we watch a game, they can break a team down to their strengths and weaknesses in minutes, and we can adapt to just about anything that teams throw at us.
Right on. Yeah, Jim's obviously been around the team for as long as you have, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, when I first was approached to coach the team, one of the first guys I went to was Jim, because he and I have had great success coaching throughout our coaching career. We won a couple All-Ontario championships with minor hockey, and
sure.
If you go into something like this, you want to have the best guys available, and those are the guys that I went after.
Absolutely. Understood. Now, last year, after the season concluded, you were named Most Dedicated Winterhawk for you earned that award, you earned that title, and well deserved, no question. What does it mean to you to earn that distinction?
Well, when you look at everybody that's involved, not just the players, but all the executive and all the people that help out, people give a lot of time that's not known.
Right.
Look at what's taken to lead up to a game, the hours that go into getting set up for the game, running the game, the executive, all the hours they have to spend going out, finding sponsorship and making sure everything's ready for our guys. It's a great accomplishment, and I feel very honored to be chosen that.
Absolutely, and like I said, well deserved, and I'm not just saying that. Now, okay, so my last question to you, I mean, if we're outreaching to anybody who hasn't been to a Winterhawks game because for whatever reason they've been living under a rock, what would you say to those people to convince them to come down to the Plex and watch a Winterhawks game? How would you sell that?
Well, it's one like this. If you don't know hockey, you'll learn hockey by coming to watch the Winterhawks.
Yeah.
You enjoy hockey, you're going to be excited by the product that's on this.
Yeah.
Our league has improved drastically over the last 10 years. The talent level just keeps increasing, not only on our team, but on every other team in the league. So, what used to be a blowout game, there are no blowout games anymore.
Yeah.
Teams are all good, and you've got to come prepared to play every night. So, if you have never seen a Winterhawk game, or have never watched a Winterhawk game, come down to the Plex on Friday nights when we play, check out our schedule, and you'll be amazed at the talent of the players that are on there. A lot of people think, these are old guys, they're all washed up. They may be older, we range from 20 to 40.
Right.
These guys give their heart and soul every game. They come to practice every week, and on top of that, they go to work on Monday.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It really is, honestly. When you think about it that way, you just, that's how much you can appreciate as a fan watching the talent on the ice, knowing that these guys are out there because they love it, not because they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars or something.
Well, they're not. That's the one misconception around here. We don't pay our players. These guys come out of the goodness of their heart, and they play for us, and they play for the fans. You know, and it means a lot to them that when they come, that we have probably one of the best fan bases in the entire league. So when they come out and the fans are there cheering, it motivates them. It's the typical seventh man on the bench thing.
Yeah, it's fantastic, really, and like I say, the atmosphere is unbeatable. Okay, finally, tell me just a little bit about Hockey Day in Kincardine to kick off your season.
Well, this is a big game. Hockey Day in Kincardine is an event that goes on between Port Elgin and Saugeen Shores and Kincardine Winterhawks.
Saugeen Shores.
A lot of rep teams play throughout the day.
Okay.
Go right from novice all the way up to midget.
Yep.
And then the Winterhawks are going to play at about 5:30, and after that is the Bulldogs, the junior C team. So
fantastic.
This is a big game. We have several players that are Bulldog graduates.
Yep.
And, you know, we're playing Ripley Wolves, who are a fantastic team. They've got probably one of the top lines in the whole league. And you can't take anything for granted against these guys. It's on a big ice. It's going to be a fast, fun game.
Right on. Yeah, and it's at the Davidson Center, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, it is.
Right on. I've played there before. It's a phenomenal building. Don, I want to thank you very much for doing this. I'm really excited for the start of Winterhawks hockey, and I'm really excited that TST is going to be able to be covering everything Winterhawks all season long, and hopefully we can bring home a fifth championship. Thank you very much, Don Matheson, for joining me today.
Thank you, Andrew, and we appreciate everything you do to get our product out there to the people that are listening and paying attention.
Not a problem, Don. We'll talk soon, okay?
Have a great night.
All right. That is Winterhawks General Manager Don Matheson joining me here on TST Total Sports Talk. Winterhawks season opener. It comes Saturday, October the 7th against the Ripley Wolves in Kincardine from the Davidson Center as part of Hockey Day in Kincardine. For all else, Winterhawks, stay tuned to Hawk Talk each and every week here on TST Total Sports Talk, and we'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents the Owen Sound Attack Report. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me as always. This is the Owen Sound Attack Report. Unfortunately, we were trying to get Fred Wallace on the program this week, but we were unable to get him in. So we will try and get him in a future weekly episode of TST down the line for his thoughts and opinions throughout the season with the Owen Sound Attack. Now, in terms of today's segment, we're going to talk about a couple things. Obviously, the Attack just wrapped up their preseason exhibition schedule, going a perfect 5-0. They were very impressive in a number of victories, a number of come-from-behind victories as well. But they look very good. Early on in the preseason, they look very, very strong. There's no question, though, that there is a lot of questions heading into the season, like who exactly will be back from last season, who will be the captain of the team. Santino Santarame was the captain last year for the Owen Sound Attack, but he's no longer there. He was an anchor for them on defense. Between him and goaltender Michael McNiven, they helped the Attack allow a Western Conference low 177 goals throughout the course of the season, leading them, of course, to their best record in franchise history, going 49-15, 2-2 for 102 points and a third place finish in the Western Conference last season. This team was very good. They had probably one of their best seasons in the team's history. Unfortunately, they fell a little bit short, losing out to the eventual OHL champion Erie Otters in the in the third round of the OHL playoffs. You know what? It'll be really interesting to see whether or not this team can duplicate that defensive success. You know, they got a new head coach behind the bench. Former NHLer Todd Gill steps in behind the bench to lead the attack this year. You know, it'll be interesting having a defensive-minded coach, you know, leading a team that's come off a very good season where they were extremely efficient defensively. You know, that will be very, very interesting. To say that this team's going to have just as good of a record as last year, it's a tall order. But if they do get a lot of guys back, I could see that definitely happening. You know, there's obviously going to be the guys that are not going to be back. You know, your overagers. So Centeno Santorame's not going to be there. Petrus Palmu, who led the team in scoring, had 40 goals, 58 assists for 98 points. He's not going to be there this year. You know, Cordell James isn't going to be there this year. You know, it'd be really interesting. You say, okay, well, where am I going to get the scoring? Where am I going to get the production, the kind of things that we had from last year? Well, obviously, guys who are maturing along are going to have to pick up the slack. No question about it. I've highlighted some players that I'm interested to see whether or not they return this season and they play for the Owen Sound Attack. So Jacob Friend on the defensive line, he was drafted by the LA Kings in the 2016 draft. Ethan Zapula, a very good player for the Owen Sound Attack. Is he going to be there? Trenton Bork on defense. He was a St. Louis Blues prospect. He was drafted by them in 2017. Marcus Phillips, drafted by the LA Kings in 2017. Jonah Gadjevich, drafted by Vancouver in 2017. Maxim Shushko, drafted by Philadelphia in the 2017 draft. And finally, Nick Suzuki for the Las Vegas Golden Knights was taken in the first round by them. You know what? Nick Suzuki finished second in scoring. And his production, as well as Jonah Gadjevich. Both those players are the biggest question marks for me. They did play in a preseason game against each other last night. A Las Vegas 9-4 win over the Vancouver Canucks. Nick Suzuki had a goal and an assist in the game. Jonah Gadjevich still was held off the scoreboard. But like I say, it'll be really interesting to see whether or not those two suit up for the Owen Sound Attack once they hit the ice, which they do in 6 days. We're only 6 days away from the opening game for the Owen Sound Attack in the regular season. It comes this Saturday at 7:30 at the Bayshore in Owen Sound against the visiting Flint Firebirds. Phenomenal first matchup for them. You know what? It's going to be a really interesting year, and I'm excited as a semi-local to the Owen Sound area. And really, I believe that the Bayshore is one of the best arenas in the entirety of the Ontario Hockey League. Not saying I've been to all of them, but I've been to this one, and you know they're obviously have a knack against them, being that they're one of the smallest buildings in the entire league. But when they fill a place up for a playoff game or which have you, that place is rocking. And there is not a bad seat in the house. And the atmosphere is incredible. So, if you haven't had a chance to get to an Attack game ever, I suggest trying to get to one because it is a phenomenal experience. And it is really good hockey. These guys, you know, these OHLers, they're not making big money, but they're playing to make the big money. They're playing to realize their dream of making it to the NHL. These guys are putting their heart and soul out each and every day for that shot at it. And I think because they want it more, the product is better. And I really, really, truly believe that. This year's Owen Sound Attack team will be very good. And they get their season started on Saturday, on Saturday, September 23rd, 6 days from now, at 7:30 p.m. at the Bayshore against the visiting Flint Firebirds. This has been Andrew Rogers for your Owen Sound Report, and we'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents the NHL and the Toronto Maple Leafs report. Welcome back. This is your Maple Leafs segment on the show. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, as always, Leafs are coming up close. There's only 16 days remaining until the Maple Leafs play their first game, October the 4th, against the Winnipeg Jets. We're very exciting. Training camp is well underway. The team is starting to have some players start to make some strides. There's three guys in particular that look like they could crack the roster this year. You got Jeremy Bracco, their first rounder Timothy Liljegren, and Travis Dermott, who look to crack the roster this year. But we want to focus more in on Jeremy Bracco, and for that we bring in Manny Paiva, news director of CTV Windsor. Manny, thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. Glad to be on.
All right. So we want to talk about Jeremy Bracco. You had the privilege of watching him play in Windsor. He had a phenomenal junior year last year, winning the World Junior with Team USA and the Memorial Cup with Windsor. Should Bracco make the Leafs lineup this season? What can Leafs fans expect from this player?
Well, he's a very skilled player. There's no doubt about it. He can put the puck in the net. He's got a pro shot already. The one thing that I really liked about his play, especially in the Memorial Cup tournament, is he made other players better. And I think that is an important part of his game that he developed in his final year of junior. He made other people around him better. And if he can adapt to that style of game where he can put the puck in the net and then help others put the puck in the net, I think that's going to be a big plus. The other thing that I thought he improved on with his game in his final junior year was his defensive play. I thought, especially in the Memorial Cup tournament, he was very sound defensively. He was responsible defensively. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor of whether he cracks the Maple Leafs roster or not.
I agree 100%. Defense is key for sure. There's no question for his offense ability, though. 83 points in 57 games last season between Kitchener and Windsor. What do you believe his chances realistically are to crack the Leafs lineup?
Well, I think the Leafs are an up-and-coming roster. They do have a couple of roster spots. They like some of their young guys to be able to crack the roster.
Sure.
But if the team gets better and stronger, it's going to be that much more difficult to make the roster. I do see an opportunity for Bracco to make the roster. Right now, I think it's more of a 50-50 shot, you know.
Yeah.
Playing defense and being responsible defensively at the junior level is way easier than being responsible at the NHL level. So if he can produce at the NHL level, which I think he can, that's going to mean the arrow is pointing in favor of him making the Leafs roster, and the coaches are going to work with him so that he can play defensively. If you can put the puck in the net, they're going to find a way for you to make the team.
100%. I agree with you. This guy, like I say, he's definitely got the skill set. You know, in some cases you could argue it may be better for him to play for the Marlies and have him play more ice time. Do you believe in that strategy?
Yeah, I think ice time is always an important part of the game. It helps you build confidence in a younger player. It helps you get better as a younger player.
Sure.
Because you have to remember, you're going from junior to the NHL. So if you can play semi-pro and adapt that much more to the pro game, I think that always helps. And I think, quite honestly, that's where Bracco is going to end up. Yeah. But again, if he's able to find a way to put the puck in the net, they're going to find a way for you at the NHL roster.
100%. No question. I completely agree with you on that. Now, when it comes to Bracco himself, could you pick a current NHLer or a former NHLer that you would say he models his game after?
I don't know if there's a guy that really stands out for me as to who he models his game after. Yeah, that's a tough question for me to answer. I just think that he's got so many tools as an offensive player.
Sure.
By putting the puck in the net, as I mentioned, a pro shot. One thing I really liked about him, especially in the Memorial Cup tournament, is he wasn't afraid to get his nose dirty, and he made other players better. I think if he continues to grow his game that way, he's going to be a sound pro, whether it's this year, whether it's next year. We'll see how he performs at training training camp and in some of those exhibition games.
Yeah, those will be definitely the deciding factor in all of this for sure. What kind of a player is Brocco when it comes to the locker room presence?
Oh, he's a great guy. I think when he was traded mid-season at the deadline from Kitchener to Windsor, I think the guys in the room in Windsor welcomed him with open arms, knew the type of player that he was getting, and he really sort of acclimated himself really well in the room with the guys. And
Sure.
then he became a leader in the Memorial Cup tournament. He wanted to end his junior career as a winner, and he helped make sure that because he performed at a high level for the Spitfires on their way to their Memorial Cup championship.
I think he matured, no doubt. Manny, I want to let you go. Thank you very much for doing this. As always, we've been speaking with Manny Paiva, News Director for CTV Windsor. Manny, you're welcome back anytime. Thanks you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
All right. We've been speaking with Manny Paiva. The Maple Leafs, they begin their season in 16 days on October the 4th in Winnipeg against the Winnipeg Jets. That's all for Maple Leafs Report. We'll be right back after this. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents the NFL Report. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. It's the NFL Report, part of our segment of our show, and there's a lot to catch up on here. There was a crazy end to week number 1, and it was quite a fuel-packed week number 2 in the National Football League. Lots to get you caught up on. So let's just get straight to it. To kick off or to finish off week number 1 in the NFL last Monday night. There was a doubleheader over on ESPN to finish off week number 1 in the NFL. You had the Minnesota Vikings coming out on top of the New Orleans Saints 29-19. Sam Bradford was massive in that game. 27 of 32 for 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was just phenomenal. Denver defeating the LA Chargers 24-21. Trevor Siemian very good in the game. 17 of 28 for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. Denver's 1-0 on the year. LA Chargers fall to 0-1. Came down to the wire, though. The San Diego kicker, Young-Ho Koo, had a chance to tie up the game, but it was blocked by the Denver defense. So phenomenal game there to finish off week number 1. Week number 2, the Thursday nighter, was kind of a dud. Saw the Houston Texans, though, come out on top 13-9 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are 0-2. Houston Texans 1-1. The big story out of this one, Deshaun Watson was very good for the Houston Texans. 15 of 24, 125 yards. Passing, 5 rushes for 67 yards and a touchdown, including a 49-yard scamper. This play is phenomenal. If you haven't watched it yet, I suggest you do so. It's absolutely phenomenal. The Baltimore Ravens kicked off the Sunday schedule by defeating the Cleveland Browns 24-10. Joe Flacco is very, very good in this game, very efficient. 25 of 34 for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. Baltimore now 2-0. Cleveland Browns 0-2. Tampa Bay Buccaneers finally got their season underway with a big win over the Chicago Bears 29-7. Jameis Winston was very good in this game, 18 of 30 for 204 yards. There and a touchdown. Mike Evans was his big target of the day. 7 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown for Mike Evans in a Tampa Bay victory. They'll go to 1-0. Chicago to 0-2. Pittsburgh Steelers moved to 2-0 with a 26-9 victory over the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings kind of taking a step back, but with no Sam Bradford, they were kind of limited in this one. Ben Roethlisberger was very good, 23 of 35, 243, and 2 touchdowns for him. Le'Veon Bell, 27 rushes for 87 yards, very good on the ground. And Martavis Bryant, 3 receptions for 91 yards and a touchdown for him in this one. all the big catalysts for the Steelers came out punching in this one, and they moved to 2-0. The other team that showed up this week finally, the New England Patriots. They finally won for the first time this season after a kind of surprising loss to the Chiefs in week number 1. They trounced the New Orleans Saints 36-20 on the hands of Tom Brady. He was absolutely meticulous in this game. 30 of 39, 447 yards for Tom Brady in this one, 3 touchdowns for him. Rob Gronkowski is big target, 6 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. He did leave the game, however, with what they're hearing is a groin injury. Doesn't look good for Gronk. Hopefully he'll be okay for them. Early word is that he'll be all right to go, but they're obviously taking a lot of precaution with Rob Gronkowski. New England 1-1. New Orleans Saints 0-2. That is a bit surprising there. Kansas City Chiefs moved to 2-0 with a big win over the Philadelphia Eagles 27-20. Alex Smith, very good in this game, 21-28. 251 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt, a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not he could follow up his big burst in the first week with a phenomenal performance again in week number 2, and he did just that. 13 rushes for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, Travis Kelce was big, 8 receptions, 103 yards and a touchdown for him. The Tennessee Titans got into the win column. They're 1-1 now. 37-16 victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, missing Allen Robinson was huge in this one for Jacksonville, but they didn't look the same as they did a week ago. They fall to the Tennessee Titans. Both teams are now at 1-1 in the division. Marcus Mariota, very good for Tennessee Titans, 15-27 for 215 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, the big-time running back out of Tennessee, had 14 rushes for 92 yards and a touchdown. He was very, very good for the Tennessee Titans. Arizona Cardinals won the first overtime game of the season over the Indianapolis Colts, headed by Jacoby Brissett today. 16-13 victory for the Arizona Cardinals over the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Palmer was very good in this game, 19-36 for 332 yards and a touchdown. His big receiving target of the day was J.J. Nelson, 5 receptions for 120 yards and a touchdown there. Coming out on top, this is a huge victory for them after losing their stud running back David Johnson in week number 1 for 2 to 3 months. Big game. Indy drops to 0-2. Arizona goes to 1-1. Carolina Panthers, a victory over the Buffalo Bills today, 9-3. Cam Newton, 20-32 for 228 yards. 5 rushes for 27 yards for Cam Newton there. Kelvin Benjamin, his big target, 6 receptions for 77 yards. Newton did briefly leave with what they're calling a potential sprained ankle, it may be, and they're a little bit unsure as to whether or not his status will be okay for week number 2. We'll continue to week number 3, and we'll continue to monitor that. That's a huge loss for them, though, if Newton is forced to miss any time. Now we shift on to Oakland. The Oakland Raiders trounced the New York Jets 45-20. In this one, Oakland moving to 2-0. Jets go to 0-2. Derek Carr was very good for the Oakland Raiders in this one, 23-28 for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. His big target of the day, Michael Crabtree, 6 receptions for 80 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oakland 2-0. It's crazy. They've been really good out of the gate so far. The Jay Cutler era in Miami has officially begun. They defeated the LA Chargers 19-17. Cutler, 24 of 33, 230 yards and a touchdown. He was unmistakable, which is very un-Cutler-like, but it was enough to get the job done. He obviously had a lot of help at the running game. Jay Ajayi had 28 rushes for 122 yards. He was beastly on the ground. Seattle Seahawks got their first win of the season, defeating the San Francisco 49ers 12-9. Russell Wilson, 198 yards through the air, 23 of 39, and a touchdown. Chris Carson, very good on the run game, 20 rushes for 93 yards from him. He was very good. He looked really good for the Seattle Seahawks in this one. Like I say, they moved to 1-1. The Washington Redskins finally got in the win column also, 1-1 for them now. They defeated the LA Rams. LA Rams go to 1-1, 27-20 victory. Kirk Cousins 18-27, 179 yards and a touchdown there. Chris Thompson, 3 rushes for 77 yards. He was the big beneficiary of the day. He had 2 rushing touchdowns for the Redskins. Denver Broncos, huge statement victory over the Dallas Cowboys, 42-17. Trevor Siemian was as good as you could get in this one, 22 of 32, 231 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air for Trevor Siemian. He got a lot of help from C.J. Anderson, 25 rushes for 118 yards and a touchdown there. 3 receptions for 36 yards and another touchdown through the air for C.J. And Emmanuel Sanders was Siemian's big target. 6 receptions, 62 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Denver goes to 2-0. Dallas to 1-1. And finally, the Sunday nighter saw the Atlanta Falcons defeat Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers 34-23. Atlanta goes to 2-0. Green Bay to 1-1. Matt Ryan was fantastic in this game. 19 of 28, 252 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Freeman was very good. 19 rushes for 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Julio Jones, 5 receptions for 108 yards there. As, like I say, Atlanta moves 2-0, Green Bay to 1-1. The Monday nighter has the Detroit Lions. They're at 1-0, facing the New York Football Giants and Eli Manning, who are at 0-1. That one goes at 8:30 over on ESPN. Now, the crazy thing out of the NFL so far has been the injuries. It's been absolutely crazy what's been going on with the injuries. Just to give you an idea, here's where we stand in terms of players who are going to miss the remainder of the season, and we're only in just the finishing week number 2. Danny Woodhead, the Baltimore Ravens, hamstring injury. David Johnson, running back, Arizona Cardinals, wrist injury. Allen Robinson, Jacksonville, wide receiver, torn ACL. Eric Berry, safety, Kansas City Chiefs, Achilles injury. Julian Edelman, New England Patriots, torn ACL, wide receiver. Kevin White, wide receiver, Chicago Bears, shoulder injury. And finally, Ryan Tannehill, Miami Dolphins quarterback, gone for the year, torn ACL. I don't know what's going on with the NFL and their players and their injuries. Like, this is crazy. Like, look at the list. It's the who's who. Like, we're not talking slouch guys. We're not talking about guys who come off as second and third stringers. We're talking about legitimate starters that are going out and getting hurt. Some of them even in the preseason, like Tannehill and Edelman. This cannot happen. These guys are getting paid big bucks to put on a phenomenal show week in and week out, and they're being lost to these unfortunate injuries. It's what it is. It's unfortunate. And you know what? You can't help but feel for these guys. And you know what? At the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's really unfortunate. Taking a look ahead now to week number 3 in the NFL. It's going to be a phenomenal week. It introduces us to our first overseas game that sees the Baltimore Ravens and the Jacksonville Jaguars tangle on Sunday, this September the 24th at 9:30. That game's available on Yahoo Sports. Some other matchups from week number 3, LA Rams and the 49ers, the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts, the New York Football Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. That'll be a good tilt. Miami Dolphins and the New York Football Jets. Denver Broncos are in Buffalo to face off against the Buffalo Bills. We got the Saints and the Panthers. Saints 0-2, Carolina 2-0. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Chicago Bears. Atlanta Falcons at the Detroit Lions. That'll be a phenomenal matchup. Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Minnesota to face off against the Vikings. You got the Houston Texans in New England to face off against the red hot, all of a sudden, New England Patriots. Seattle Seahawks are into Tennessee to face off against Tennessee Titans. Cincinnati Bengals 0-2 into Lambeau to face off against what will be hungry Green Bay Packers. Bengals 0-2. They've only scored 9 points all season long. The Sunday nighter is a good one. You got the Oakland Raiders at 2-0 into Washington to face off against Kirk Cousins and the Washington Redskins. And the Monday nighter sees what would have been a phenomenal tilt. It had both running backs been healthy. I mean, you know, Ezekiel Elliott is going to be there, no question. But David Johnson not being there it takes away a little bit of the stud power at the running back position for both teams at least. But it will be a phenomenal matchup nonetheless. Arizona getting a big win today and Dallas unfortunately losing to Denver today. That's all I've got for the NFL report for this week's episode of TST Total Sports Talk. We'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents the Toronto Raptors and the NBA Report. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're going to talk now about the NBA and the Toronto Raptors. Raptors, it's 31 days to go until they open up shop at the Air Canada Centre Thursday, October the 19th against the Chicago Bulls. Can't wait for that one personally. I mean, it's going to be nice to have basketball back. With how good the Raptors have been doing, it's going to be phenomenal for them to be back on the floor and representing the city of Toronto and all of Canada, essentially, for the NBA. They are the Canada's team in the NBA, so it's always nice to see them do well and get the Jurassic Park fans out there and to support them during their playoff runs. You know, as a Raptor supporter, you got to hope maybe they could avoid Cleveland in the playoffs. That might do them some good. I'm just spitballing, but I think that might be all right. No question, though, that the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics are the cream of the crop in the East, and you're going to have to go through one of those two teams to get through to possibly an NBA final. But obviously, the regular season is where it starts. They need to be able to make a playoff spot, and they need to be able to have a significant and healthy enough roster come playoff time that is significant enough to go on a run. Now, Toronto Raptors preseason. We got 5 games on slate for the Toronto Raptors, starting Sunday, October the 1st in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's Sunday, October 1st and Tuesday, October 3rd, dates with the LA Clippers, both games. They play the Portland Trail Blazers Thursday, October 5th. They play the Detroit Pistons Tuesday, October 10th. And they end the preseason Friday, October 13th at the Chicago Bulls in Chicago at the United Center. Kind of ironic. They play the last preseason game against Chicago, and then they open up 6 days later at the ACC against the same Chicago Bulls. So maybe they can get a good handle on what's in store. Now, Toronto Raptors, you know what? In October, their schedule is brutal. You got the Chicago Bulls first, Philadelphia 76ers second. Those 2 games at home at the ACC. But then it's a wicked, wicked road finish. You got San Antonio, Golden State Warriors, LA Lakers, and Portland Trail Blazers. I'm not trying to sound like a Debbie Downer, but I could see the Raptors going 2-4 to start the month of October. That being said, optimism in me says, hey, go 4-2. That would be awesome. Yeah, Toronto Raptors, they're coming back, and we're really excited on the program to be covering them once they get fully underway. Speaking also of the NBA and it coming back and getting started again, there are going to be a lot of changes to the jerseys. I don't know if any of you guys have seen these jerseys. I imagine you have. They've been seen everywhere, basically. They got statement jerseys. They got different variations. Nike's come out with all these jerseys, different variations that teams will wear throughout the course of the season. Some of them incredible. Some of them not so incredible. It's nice, though, I gotta admit that the basketball fan in me likes the vintage Charlotte Hornets one the best. I mean, it seemed like only yesterday where you saw those teal green jerseys that the Charlotte Hornets used to wear on a daily basis back in the days of Larry Johnson and Muggsy Bogues, to name a few. But the purpose is that it's going to be a new look NBA. There are going to be a lot of fancy looking jerseys on these players that are going to go out and they're going to put on a show every single night. Again, Cleveland, Boston, cream of the crop in the East. The Raptors are going to have to get through one of those 2 teams to possibly make an NBA Finals appearance. But you know what? Who knows? I'm always optimistic as a Raptor fan because I never know really what to expect. I expect this team to be good. I'm hoping that the team will be good. I think it's important for the city of Toronto that the Toronto Raptors are good this season. And I'm really hoping that that's the case. I believe there's a lot of players that have left the Eastern Conference and that are now playing in the Western Conference that should give the Toronto Raptors a good shot at making a good run this year. Time is running out, though. DeMar and Kyle aren't getting any younger. They're not going to be there forever. Now's the time to strike while the iron is hot. That being said, that's been it for the NBA report and the Toronto Raptors report. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. TST Total Sports Talk presents the Major League Baseball report and Toronto Blue Jays report. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, this is your MLB and Blue Jays report. Now, unfortunately, the Jays have been out of the playoff race for so long that there's not a whole lot to talk about from the Blue Jays, but we'll touch on them a little bit. Jays last week, 5 wins, 3 losses. Not terrible, but too little, too late, obviously. However, this is not dwelled on third baseman Josh Donaldson. Josh Donaldson has been one of the hottest hitters in the American League since the All-Star break. He has 21 home runs in total since the All-Star break. The guy's been absolutely on fire. Over the course of the weekend, let's put it in perspective. The Jays played the weekend in Minnesota, 4-game series over in Minneapolis. This guy had a torrid weekend, okay? Friday, he has 3 hits, a home run, 2 RBIs. Saturday, 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 4 runs scored. And then yesterday, 2 for 4 with a home run, a walk, 2 RBIs, and 3 runs scored. It's not just the home runs. It's not just the production, because we know it's really always there with Josh Donaldson. Unfortunately, he started the year slow because he had an injury, but he's turned it on and then some lately. But these home runs that he's hitting are mammoth home runs. He hit one into the third deck yesterday, a 481-foot home run. Just mammoth. He's up to 30 home runs now, which seemed like an afterthought given the slow start out of the gate with the injury. It's amazing to see Josh Donaldson. Again, we always knew he had it in him. This will be good for Josh Donaldson heading into the next season on a high note, and this is only good. I mean, they're going to need him next year with the uncertainty of the roster. They're going to need a healthy Josh Donaldson and a guy who's just going to keep mashing the baseball. It's good news. Donaldson, crazy weekend for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he's just absolutely incredible. So talented, so much there, so much good things going on there. Jays start a 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals on Tuesday at the Rogers Center. Should be a good one. Marcus Stroman, I believe, pitches in the first game for the Toronto Blue Jays on Tuesday. Let's look at the American League standings now. In the East, Boston is in control there, 85-64, 3 games ahead of the New York Yankees. In the Central, Cleveland, 93-57, 14.5 games ahead of Minnesota. We'll get to them in a little bit, but they are in control there. And in the West, the Houston Astros claimed the AL West yesterday with a win. They are 91-58, 15 games clear of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. In the wild card picture, the Yankees are well in control, 4 games ahead of the Minnesota Twins, who hold down the second spot. The LA Angels are in 2 games behind Minnesota for the second game, or for the second wild card. Seattle, 4.5 games and falling fast out of the race there. And Kansas City Royals, who come to the Rogers Center to start a 3-game series on Tuesday, are 5 games back of the Minnesota Twins. Jays can play huge spoilers against the Royals this upcoming 3-game set for sure. Over to the National League, you got the Washington Nationals in control, 21 games ahead of Miami in the East, 90-59. They have the second best record in the National League. The Central is being closely contested between the Chicago Cubs, who lead the division, 83-66. Milwaukee at 79 and 70. The Brewers 4 games behind, and St. Louis Cardinals 77 and 72, 6 games out. Time is of the essence here. There's only so many games left, and these teams are going to need to push and push hard. Over in the NL West, the Dodgers 96 and 53, 9.5 games ahead of the Arizona Diamondbacks at 87 and 63. However, good news for Arizona, they are the number 1 wildcard seed. Well in control there, 87-63, 5 games ahead of the Colorado Rockies. Colorado third in that NL West division at 82 and 68. They are the second wild card. Milwaukee is on their heels, 2.5 games back at 79 and 70, with St. Louis at 77 and 72, 4.5 games back of the Rockies. Now, our final story for the MLB and the Blue Jays report comes from the Cleveland Indians. We have to talk about this because last week their streak, the historic streak, came to an end. They won 22 games in a row, set an American League record for the most wins consecutively there. They ended up 4 short of the 1916 San Francisco Giants, who won 26 in a row. Let's put this into perspective here. Is this the best streak ever? Statistically, no. They fell 4 short. However, it may be the most impressive. Here's some things to consider. It's the second longest winning streak of all time, like I said. Outscored their opponents by 105 runs. 105 runs in 22 games they outscored their opponents by. 12 different players had at least 5 runs scored, 6 with at least 10 RBIs. Francisco Lindor led the way with 20. 17 different players recorded an extra base hit. They hit 41 home runs in 22 games. 41 home runs. They only allowed 37 runs total. Unreal. 7 of their 22 wins came via the shutout. On August 23rd, they were 69 and 56 and looking for a wild card spot. They are now well ahead of the Minnesota Twins in the Central. The 22nd win in a row clinched the AL Central for the Cleveland Indians. And finally, they were the only team as of this, with the Houston Astros. They were the first team in the American League to clinch a playoff spot. Unreal stories, really. I mean, the Cleveland Indians, what they've done is just flat out remarkable, and they will be a force to be reckoned with in the American League side of the playoffs once the Major League Baseball playoffs get started. That is all I have for the MLB and Toronto Blue Jays report. We'll be right back after this. Stick around, folks. You are watching TST Total Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Andrew Rogers here for TST Total Sports Talk. I really want to thank everybody for joining in and continuing to watch each and every episode of TST. Very excited to be back and be doing these programs on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. It's actually become a lot easier to do these videos and to get them uploaded and to organize them. I hope you guys like everything that's being presented to you. These graphics I put a lot of hard work into, and really making sure that they really pop off the screen. So I'm really hoping you guys enjoy that in the presentation of everything. I really hope it's smooth enough for you. Obviously, as the videos keep coming, they will get better, I promise. We've now reached the portion in our show where it's time for your sports movie pick of the week. Here it is. Enjoy. This week's TST Total Sports Talk sports movie pick of the week is Remember the Titans. This movie was released in the year 2000. It's based on the true story of a newly appointed African-American coach and his high school team on their first season as a racially integrated unit. This movie stars Denzel Washington as Coach Herman Boone, Will Patton, Wood Harris, Ethan Suplee, Hayden Panettiere, Kate Bosworth, and Ryan Gosling. This is a phenomenal movie if you like football and sports in general. Denzel Washington is phenomenal in this movie, based on the T.C. Williams High School integrating with the blacks and the whites in a power struggle to form a unity. It is quite a sports movie that I would highly recommend.
We will be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile. You miss a blocking assignment, you run a mile. You fumble the football, and I will break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts. And then you will run a mile. Perfection. Let's go to work.
Remember the Titans, released in the year 2000, is our TST Total Sports Talk sports movie pick of the week. Well, you can't tell me that doesn't fire you up. I don't know about you guys, but anytime I hear that speech from Denzel Washington and Remember the Titans, it's just, it fuels me, and it really makes me all pumped up inside. Maybe that's because I'm a former sports athlete. I try and get out and play baseball every now and then and hockey every now and then, but with my busy schedule, it can be kind of tough to do that sometimes. But it just, you know what, it's a phenomenal movie, a great family sports movie, one that each and every one of you guys could enjoy. You have my word, as evidenced by this week's sports movie pick of the week. I wouldn't put these movies out there if I didn't think that people would enjoy them. So hopefully you find it in your time and busy schedules to do so. That's all with the time that we have here on the program this week for TST Total Sports Talk. Now, commentator's clothing is made and purchased from Vistaprint. Go to vistaprint.ca for all your custom apparel needs or whichever. They are fantastic. You know what, I've gone to them for a bunch of times for a lot of things, and I've always been satisfied with their products. So go to vistaprint.ca and browse their selections and see if there's anything that piques your interest. Andrew Rogers signing off now for TST Total Sports Talk this week, reminding you to keep your head up and keep your stick on the ice, and we'll see you again next week, folks. Have a good one.